Welcome to ZUMBI, a monthly conversation with artists, activists, and scholars whose work is influenced by the richness of Black life in Austin and around the world. Your host is writer and community curator, Stephanie L. Lane.
All right. Good morning, KAZI listeners. And again, this is ZUMBI, named after Afro-Brazilian freedom fighter Zumbi dos Palmares. And as always, I am your host, Stephanie Lane. And as always, making it happen, DJ Slice.
Yep. How you doing this morning?
I am doing, that's the question, right? I'm here. How about that? I'm here.
We both here. We are here. And one of the things we need to do, DJ Slice, we're going to have a interview with just me and you. We're going to talk about all kinds of things. Because you have a lot of things to share with the people. So we're going to have to share with that. Yes. Okay. I'm ready. I'm ready. Ready when you are. I'm ready when you are.
Okay. So this morning, as all mornings with ZUMBI, I'm just really excited about our guest today, and especially thinking about all the things going on. It's really important for me to showcase folks that are doing the work, right? And have always done the work. And our guest today, Kellee Coleman, is definitely not an exception to that. She's someone who I have seen tirelessly do this work for a really long time. And I know that her work really speaks to this long tradition of Black women in Austin from as long as I can remember and past that, who have really been, organizers and doing work in our community. And I sometimes think that message, that history gets lost a lot of times. There's just kind of this understanding that new folks have come in and swooped in and are doing this work without looking at this legacy that they, proudly are standing on. So I just wanted to acknowledge that real quick. Okay, so yes, Kellee Coleman, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, Stephanie. It's really, it's an honor to be with you. You're awesome and have your own legacy of work that speaks for itself as well. And, all the folks that we're connected to too here in Austin.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And so for folks that don't know Kellee, I wanted to tell them a little bit about you. So I know that can always be a little awkward, but
yeah,
I'm going to do it anyway. It needs to be said.
Okay.
Give folks their roses, right?
Right.
Kellee Coleman has over 18 years of equity and social justice, community organizing experience, integrated media, and popular education as strategies for social change. In 2008, she co-founded Vibrant Women Mamasana Prenatal Clinic, a project of mamas of color rising that provides holistic and cultural specific prenatal care, birth companions, midwifery. Did I say that right? I always struggle with that.
You did. You said it perfectly.
Yes. Prenatal fitness and nutrition services to lower income Black and Latina folks in the Austin area. In 2013, Kellee facilitated the Austin Public Health Department's Community Health Workers Training focused on health equity issues impacting Black women in Austin, Texas. She has conducted original research on the social detriments of health. All right, come on, as they impact Black women locally. She is a member of the National Leadership Collective of Incite Women and Trans People of Color Against Violence. She has consulted with numerous national and local organizations on equity and reproductive issues, including the U.S. Midwifery Education Regulation and Association, MANA, a national Latino organization, the University of Texas LBJ School of Public Affairs, and the Austin Women's Community Center. Kellee has 3 children and graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in Sociology from St. Edward's University in 2015. All right. So again, welcome to the show. And what I always like to do in starting off these conversations is if you could share a little bit of your journey that brought you to, the work you're doing around organizing and social justice.
Sure. So I think it started as a young person. I'm from a neighborhood in Austin called Dove Springs. And in middle school, we got a curfew that was, we were the only neighborhood that had this curfew for folks who were under 18 being out after certain times. And so, folks would get picked up or ticketed, taken to Gardner Betts. But at the time too, we were one of the only neighborhoods that really didn't have our own rec center, or there wasn't a lot to do. So we found stuff to do, and so I just, a lot of the folks that I grew up with were justice involved, and we had to really push to get the recreation center, to get the library. And I remember back when they used to have like a midnight basketball at the rec once we got it, right? Like that stuff was a big deal. Instead of going to Dove Springs, we a lot of times would either go to South Austin or we'd go to Montopolis or to Rosewood, depending on what was going on. But what I saw was that my neighborhood seemed really strong to me, right? Like people took care of each other. And I felt like I saw a lot of beauty in that neighborhood as well. But there was this sort of outside critique of the neighborhood. People were scared to come to the neighborhood. There weren't a lot of resources coming from inside the neighborhood. So it was one of those things, right, where we got together, and at the time I remember there were folks who really wanted this particular funding to go to creating the Citizens on Patrol group, right? And as a young person, it was me and maybe like 6 other kids. We pushed because we wanted to have summer jobs. And so we were able to get the Summer Youth Employment Program to come to Dove Springs. And it was still around the time that the Cowboys used to come to camp at St. Ed's. You remember that? They would come and do their camp there, and that it was a summer that we were able to get the Summer Youth Employment Program to come to Dove Springs. And that was, I think, really whenever I started to feel like we could build power to really be able to affect change, because we were able to get that program there. And then I started. There was a show on Access that back in the day, it used to be AC TV, right? But right there behind the DeWitte Center. And my friend JoJo had a show, and it actually came on like right after Alex Jones. So I grew up, which is weird, right? Seeing Alex Jones like every Saturday. But I started doing that show, and we would talk about, it's called What's on Your Mind. And it was all youth led, and we would talk about what was going on in the community. And so I think that's kind of where I got my start. And we would have conversations with people like Alex Jones and people like Dorothy Turner, just like people who had serious opinions and serious thoughts about what was going on as young folks. And it was a way for us to get out what we were seeing and what our thoughts were on it. So that's kind of, I think, where all this sort of started.
So, okay, thinking about that and how you got your start in this work, and obviously, that's a whole lot that then took you to being the co-founder of Mama Sana, obviously. So wanted to talk a little bit about that as well, and some of the other kind of more recent organizing you've done. And, and thinking about that, that's a whole lot, right? I'm sure there was a lot that kind of happened from what we just talked about to your work with Mama Sana. But again, kind of building on this organizing and social justice, speaking to why you saw the need for that and why that was so important.
Okay. So I had my daughter in 2003, and I was like going to school, working, and it was really I think it changed my life having my daughter. It was not easy being a single mom in Austin, and so I think that really influenced me to connect with other moms. Mm-hmm. And so as I did that, I made really good friends with this woman named Jeanette Monsalve, who had a show on Co-op Radio. And her and I got together and I started doing her show with her. And that show was called Mommies of Color, right? Mm-hmm. And so we would talk about, how to access resources. Basically, we were trying to give people the game around the hustle of being single moms in Austin. And as we were doing that, we started working or following the work of this organization called Insight, and getting a better understanding of what state violence and interpersonal violence and the connection looks like for Black women, Indigenous folks, and other people of color, right? And as we started to do that, we got in connection with another woman named Paula Rojas, who was a part of that organization. And we also got connected with Color Violence, which is this it's like a conference that's held every few years, connected to state violence and Insight, right? So in connecting to that, Paula moved to Austin, and we started Mamas of Color. And I think the first project we worked on was we made a zine about what it meant to be a parent in the United States under the circumstances that we were living under. And I think from there we went on to I had my son, and we went on to build out our collective. So then we ended up having 10 women together, and I think Ishe and Sade, and there were many others. It was all Black, Brown, Asian women in the organization. And so the more work we did, we ended up leaving the radio show and wanting to do more organizing on the ground. And we were trying to figure out, what does the community need? What do people, want? And so we started going to, welfare offices and WIC offices, because we had to go anyway for our own needs. And we would just start conversations with people, with families, and we started this survey. And what we saw in the survey to come out was that people were, and it didn't come out numerically, but it came out qualitatively around birth, right? And around people's birth experiences. And so that's when we started to focus on that.
Okay, we are going to take a quick break, and we will be right back.
Okay.
Support for KAZI is provided by Shepherd's Carpet Cleaning.
Shepherd's Carpet Cleaning cleans residential and commercial carpets. They inspect your carpet to determine your needs and will move furniture and return it after they clean. They also clean tile and grout, upholstery, and dryer vents. Shepherd's is fully insured and bonded, and they use biodegradable carpet cleaning products. For more information, 512-317-4846 or shepherdscarpetcare.com.
Support for KAZI is provided by the City of Austin Cultural Arts Division.
The City of Austin Cultural Arts Division, including art in public places, cultural funding, and the African American Cultural Heritage Facility, whose cultural art programs provide leadership for the economic development of the Austin's creative economy. Learn more at austincreates.gov.
Here's an easy way to help you remember how to spot a stroke fast. F. Face drooping. A. Arm weakness. S. Speech difficulty. T. Time. To call 911. Every minute counts when you or a loved one are showing signs of a stroke. Even during COVID-19, call 911. Fast treatment can lessen the brain damage that a stroke can cause. Calling 911 is still the fastest way to get life-saving treatment. Spot a stroke fast. Call 911. Brought to you by Austin Public Health.
At home, in your car, KAZIFM.org. We are the voice of Austin, 88.7 FM.
All right. We are back with our guest, Kellee Coleman. And before the break, we were talking about all of the amazing work that Mama Sonnet did. And we were specifically talking about what this was a survey, right, that was done around what the experiences for women of color with birth. Okay.
Yeah. So when we were doing the surveys, we realized that there was a lot of need, but that some of the deepest qualitative experiences that we were hearing about, where the stories was around birth, right? And so we started looking into that, and we started. That's whenever we really started to focus on it. We had been a plaintiff on a lawsuit against the state of Texas for food stamp discrimination. We had done some other work, but I think that the birth justice piece, was just really the most intense. We all got trained as doulas, as birth companions. And we had this Black midwife come out. Her name is Nandi, to train us around a more culturally specific way of birthing and like child rearing. And so we learned, how to wear babies, how, more about breastfeeding, and natural ways of taking care of ourselves. And so we started providing that to other folks across the city. So we started training other folks how to do that as we did it. And then we started the project, and that's whenever Paula went and became a midwife herself, right? Because there were no Black midwives in Austin, and no, I think she might have been the only Latina at the time too. So, but now we have a few, so things are better. But what we learned about in that process was about the disparities around outcomes for Black women and babies that were so stark and really, really sad. So we also started to learn about how emotional and mental stress, right? They call it toxic stress, can wear on our bodies, right? And Dr. Kamara Jones talks about it as weathering. So it's like you're actually carrying a load. It's the allostatic load, right? And a lot of times, we don't even realize it. We're like a fish in water because it's always been that way, right? Like, when you come into the world, you're either a Black person or you're not, right? So that's not something that changes over time. And so what it means to, everyone has stress, but not everyone has that stress, right? Yeah. And so as we started to put this project together, we were all volunteer, supporting births in Austin. The more we ran into issues like women being drug tested without their knowledge in hospitals, women trying to access different types of care or, get options around their birth, and getting pushback, right? We helped to get a rules change implemented with help with the state around Medicaid and covering midwifery, and we were able to get it for birth centers and nurse midwives, but not certified professional midwives. There was a lot of complex sort of wording in that rule change, and the only folks that were able to benefit, well, the state benefited, right? We saw birth centers pop up in Houston, Dallas, South Texas, I think San Antonio, and other places. But in Austin, we didn't have any birth centers that took Medicaid because they didn't have to, because it's become this sort of like boutique, kind of bougie way of birthing.
Ooh, so much there. So, and as usual, time goes so fast. So in this last 5 minutes, I would like, to ask you for myself and others, right, who in some ways feel like there's so much, feeling overwhelmed, not knowing where to start with all of the different things that are going on, directly, indirectly in their communities. Thinking about, some of the things you shared with us, which I thought was really important, around your organizing work. What would some of your advice, what would some of your suggestions be on, for folks who feel powerless, like where to even start with what they're seeing, like how to begin to even do this work?
I would start with, I think we have to be scholars of history. We have to know our history. We have to know the history. And that doesn't mean you have to start with, 100 years ago, right? Just talking to some of your elders, you'll know why and how. And I think I was on this webinar the other night with Dr. Holly from ACC, and she was talking about radical hope, right? And who her ancestors were. And so I think that we need to be clear about what power looks like, and that and we need to claim it. We can't afford to stay in it. I get it, right? Like sometimes it's normal, I think, to feel powerless, but at the end of the day, we have to step into our power, right? And no one can empower us. Only we can do that. No one can give us power. We already have it, and we just have to step into it. But knowing who you come from, your people, knowing what's been done before, I think can help inspire us to be able to do that.
Absolutely. So in closing, I know you have a lot of hats, and every time I turn around, there's something that you are being brought into, or, with all these amazing events and things that are happening. You work with the Equity Office. Is there any event or program or project or anything that you want folks to kind of be aware of?
Yes. Okay. So July 11th, the Equity Office with the City of Austin is going to be putting on a community conversation with it's going to be a multilingual community conversation on COVID-19. It's called Together Against COVID-19. We want to hear from the community. We want to learn from folks to hear about how they're doing. What do people need? I know that different communities are dealing with different pieces of this, right? So we have our Asian community that's experiencing higher levels of harassment and threats of violence during this time around COVID. We have the Latino community that is experiencing high positivity rates and also experiencing high hospitalization. And then we have Black folks that are dying at like 3 times the rate of white folks. So it's in race and health is racism rather, and health are very interconnected. And we want to hear how people are doing and where they're at and what they need and how the city can help and how other community organizations can help. And also what the community is doing to take care of ourselves. How are we caring for each other? So that other folks might be able to plug in. And honestly, the city, we need to follow the leadership of our community and learn from that. Because we're not going to healthcare our way, I don't think, out of this. I think we need some like policy level and industry level intervention around these issues. So
definitely. And so to find out more about it.
So to find out more about it, you can go to the Equity Office website. And actually, it's in partnership with the county as well, because our health department is connected, covers Travis County. So it's Austin Public Health, the Equity Office, and the county. And if you go to austintexas.gov and look for the Equity Office's page, you can find out. You can also find out on Austin Public Health website, or any of our Facebooks. So you can look, you can find it.
All right.
Yeah, and please reach out if you have any questions for me or have any anywhere you want to be or something you want to bring up. We also have monthly Equity Action Team meetings for folks who are interested in learning about equity or who are doing work in the community. We get together every month.
All right. Thank you for sharing all that. Thank you for sharing some of your journey with us. Again, my guest was Kellee Coleman. Again, honored to have you on the show. This was ZUMBI. I'm Stephanie Lang. Until next time, and y'all, for real, be gentle with yourselves. Thank you.
Welcome to ZUMBI, a monthly conversation with artists,